Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you a pleasant time listening to books. Today, I'll be interpreting the book, Hidden Games, for you. This book is intriguing as it uses game theory as a conceptual tool to explain some seemingly irrational preferences or behaviors in humans. For example, why do people sometimes willingly do things for others without expecting anything in return? Why do people in certain regions prefer specific food preparation methods or flavors? Why do some individuals enjoy showing off while others prefer to keep a low profile? Why do we all know that peace is valuable, yet still find it challenging to resist the temptation of tit for tat? The traditional economic assumption is that people are rational, pursuing maximum economic benefits with minimal costs. However, behavioral economics suggests that humans are irrational, influenced by cognitive biases and psychological effects. This book goes even further, revealing that many seemingly irrational behaviors or preferences have rational explanations rooted in the outcomes of strategic interactions, or what the authors call hidden games. The two authors of this book, Moshe Hoffman and Erez Yoli, teach at Harvard University's Economics Department and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, respectively. They aim to convey that, often, our actions are not solely driven by emotions or preferences but are instead motivated by the hidden games, strategies embedded in our genes throughout human evolution. Now, let's delve into the book and use game theory to unveil the mysteries of life, offering a better understanding of the world we inhabit. To begin, we need to grasp three crucial conceptual tools related to game theory. Don't worry, it's not a tedious learning task. Understanding these tools can help us decipher the logic behind many phenomena. The first tool is called Nash equilibrium, emphasized by the authors as the most critical concept in game theory. You may have heard of it. It was introduced by the mathematician John Nash. Nash equilibrium describes a specific equilibrium state in a game where no participant can unilaterally change their strategy without suffering losses. In simpler terms, in a competitive setting, each participant makes choices based on the assumption that others will not change their strategies independently. Consider a scenario in a small town with several hamburger joints clustered in the city center, leading to intense competition. Why not spread out and open shops elsewhere? Looking at it from the perspective of one hamburger joint, it becomes apparent that opening anywhere else is not feasible. The first joint, if not located in the city center, risks losing customers to a competitor who chooses to open there. Subsequent joints follow suit, ensuring that all establishments end up in the city center. This is the Nash equilibrium in this scenario. Although it seems like a free choice on the surface, in a multi-party game, each participant makes decisions based on the actions of others, ultimately leading to Nash equilibrium. If anyone deviates from this strategy, they suffer losses. Now, when we mention losses in this context, what does it refer to? Your initial thought might be money, but in game theory, it's not necessarily monetary. All discussions of losses and gains in game theory relate to changes in primary rewards. This introduces the concept of primary rewards, the next tool we'll discuss in this journey, a set of contrasting concepts, primary rewards and secondary rewards. Primary rewards are those ingrained in human genetics, things we inherently like, such as food, sex, safety, health, and certain social aspects like trust, reputation, and power. Notably, money is not included because it's not something we naturally like. It becomes desirable only as we grow older and realize its ability to obtain the aforementioned primary rewards. This also helps us understand why, in life, monetary incentives sometimes fail. For instance, there are times when we exert effort or help others without expecting any reward. We speak up without being paid to do so. Perhaps what we truly desire is not money but some primary rewards like trust, reputation, and more. An interesting study conducted in a kindergarten illustrates this point. A new rule was implemented, stating that parents who arrive late to pick up their children would be fined based on the amount of time they exceeded. Surprisingly, the number of late parents increased, and they arrived even later. Why did this happen? The introduction of fines shifted the perception of being late from a social disapproval to a financial transaction. Parents thought, even though I'm late, I paid the fine, so it's like a daycare fee. They no longer worried about upsetting the kindergarten staff or appearing irresponsible to other parents. Money, In this case, offset social disapproval. Now, let's circle back. We've clarified that money doesn't fall into the category of primary rewards because it's something we learn to like through postnatal experiences. These things have a name: secondary rewards. Besides money, what else falls into the realm of secondary rewards? There are many examples, such as hobbies like drawing, singing, collecting stamps, engaging in sports, and preferences for specific smells or sounds. Additionally, titles, publications, and other pursuits that many people strive for also fall under secondary rewards. These, however, are not the focus of game theory. Game theory is a tool for analyzing primary rewards. In game theory, all discussions of gains or losses refer to changes in primary rewards. This perspective itself can help us see beyond surface appearances and uncover deeper meanings. Now, let's move on to our third conceptual tool, a pair of relative concepts: proximate explanation and ultimate explanation. What do these terms mean? Consider a simple example: why does Indian cuisine have a strong emphasis on spices? A proximate explanation might be that Indians simply enjoy this flavor. This focuses on secondary rewards, taste preferences. The ultimate explanation, however, is that spices can inhibit and kill bacteria that cause food spoilage, which is particularly useful in hot climates. This centers around primary rewards, health and safety. Biologists have found similar dual explanations in various cultural practices. For instance, when Native Americans add burnt shells or a bit of wood ash while cooking corn, a proximate explanation might be that it enhances the flavor. However, biologists go beyond this and discover the ultimate explanation: soaking corn in an alkaline solution releases vitamin B3, niacin, from the corn, increasing its nutritional value and preventing pellagra. In Fiji, pregnant and breastfeeding women strictly adhere to dietary taboos, avoiding certain fish like sharks, king mackerel, and moray eels. If you ask a woman why, she might say it's a tradition or based on her mother's advice. However, biologists unearth the ultimate explanation: these fish contain dangerous ciguatoxins, and the vulnerable periods of pregnancy and breastfeeding make women more susceptible to the toxins, which can harm both them and their children. Similarly, many Chinese customs related to postpartum confinement, sitting the month, originated from the past when medical and sanitary conditions were less advanced. These practices were protective measures to prevent women from getting sick as much as possible. This highlights the distinction between proximate and ultimate explanations. While proximate explanations can be interesting and address some questions, they are by no means conclusive or satisfying. We need to seek ultimate explanations, and that is precisely what game theory focuses on. For instance, the high-cost signaling theory in game theory is one form of ultimate explanation. The concept of high-cost signaling theory may sound sophisticated, but it's quite simple. Let's consider a familiar example: why do male peacocks like to display their long tails? The proximate explanation is to attract female peacocks. However, this explanation isn't sufficient. Why are female peacocks attracted to long tails, and what purpose does the long tail serve? The ultimate explanation is that the long tail signifies that the male peacock is likely strong and healthy. A weak peacock with a long tail would find it challenging to evade predators. Therefore, the long tail acts as a high-cost signal. Regardless of the peacock's actual physical condition, growing a long tail is a high-cost endeavor. However, for those peacocks with good health, the cost is relatively lower, and they can afford to maintain it. Thus, the long tail becomes a signal showcasing the strength of the male peacock. To reiterate the logic of high-cost signaling, it's a high-cost action for the sender, regardless of the sender's type. However, for certain specific groups, the cost is relatively lower, making it feasible for them to send this signal. Therefore, the crucial Nash equilibrium in this game is that high-cost signals are sent only when the sender is of a superior type. This allows the receivers to filter out this specific group. Using this logic, we can also understand why throughout history, humans have been drawn to things that may be visually appealing but not necessarily practical. For example, displaying fragile and expensive artworks at home or wearing intricate and complex jewelry might seem like aesthetic choices or preferences on the surface. However, the ultimate explanation is to release a high-cost signal, informing others of one's economic strength. Hence, many people's fascination with luxury items essentially revolves around the allure of sending high-cost signals. Imagine if we could buy a Rolex watch for $50 at a convenience store. Would so many people still desire to own one? Tracing through global history, the evolving aesthetics, tastes, and preferences often align with the high-cost signaling model. Take skin color, for example. In the agricultural societies of medieval Europe, only the wealthy individuals who didn't have to engage in labor could afford to have fair skin. Therefore, people regarded fair skin as beautiful, and medieval European women even used toxic lead to bleach their skin. However, after the Industrial Revolution, more people started working in factories and later in offices, making fair skin common and no longer a high-cost signal. Conversely, having enough time to sunbathe or go on seaside vacations became a luxury. Consequently, people developed an affinity for tan skin, especially in Europe and America. The same logic applies to food preferences. Examining recipes from the medieval and early Renaissance periods, we can see that people across various social classes in Europe were avid lovers of sugar and spices. During that time, sugar and spices were imported and expensive. Ordinary households could only afford them for special occasions, while merchants and nobility frequently indulged. However, with the development of trade between Europe and India, the prices of sugar and spices dropped, making them accessible to all households. The once high-cost signal became commonplace. Therefore, during the reign of Louis XIV in France, a new culinary trend emerged, emphasizing the natural flavors of ingredients and simplifying seasoning. Consider etiquette as well. In the past, aristocrats adhered to intricate etiquette rules. For instance, traditional British aristocratic dining tables required using different forks for shrimp, salad, and the main course, along with 3 or 4 different high-stemmed glasses. Why go through such trouble? It's not merely for practical dining purposes, it's another high-cost signal. Exquisite tableware indicates your ability to afford them, and impeccable table manners signify not only wealth but also noble lineage, with specialists teaching these manners. However, in the present day, elaborate table etiquette has gradually lost its appeal. An essential reason is the widespread availability of tutorials on the internet. We see many upscale restaurants now adopting a different style called minimalist dining. One example is Alinea, a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Chicago. The tableware is simple, and some dishes are served directly on the table, allowing guests to scoop and eat directly. At this point, it's evident that all these examples revolve around deliberately sending high-cost signals. However, the book also discusses an intriguing phenomenon. Some people intentionally hide high-cost signals. For example, the author mentions that in the United States, some Harvard students may not directly say they attend Harvard. When asked about their school, they might respond with, "over in Boston." Similarly, in China, when inquiring about a student from Peking or Tsinghua University, some parents might vaguely reply, "in Beijing." Why engage in behaviors that hide advantageous signals, such as concealing wealth, achievements, or strengths? You might think, why not just state it outright? Wouldn't it appear more modest to let others inquire, showing humility? Indeed, that is one reason. The book shares a story about a wealthy man named Lao Li who donated a new exhibition hall to a local art gallery. Attending the opening ceremony, he felt satisfied seeing his name at the entrance. However, upon turning around, he noticed another exhibition hall in the museum donated anonymously. Suddenly, his satisfaction vanished. He said to his spouse, "Now it seems like I donated for the sake of reputation." Later, the situation worsened. Everyone at the ceremony was curious about the anonymous donor, and it was eventually discovered to be Lao Tan, Lao Li's arch-rival. Lao Li, listening to all the praises for Lao Tan, left the event in frustration, complaining to his spouse, "No one told me I could first donate anonymously and then let everyone know. Otherwise, I would have done the same." In this story, Lao Tan might have wanted to enhance people's impression of his signal by initially hiding it and then revealing it, also releasing an additional signal of, "I am humble." However, you might argue that there is a risk in this approach. What if no one is curious, and the donation goes unnoticed? Indeed, that's a possibility. Therefore, there's a greater likelihood that Lao Tan didn't mind if everyone knew about the donation or not. Why? It's possible that Lao Tan is already a highly renowned entrepreneur who has engaged in numerous philanthropic activities. He doesn't need this small donation to self-promote. In reality, many instances exist where a person with numerous advantages doesn't feel the need to actively showcase a specific aspect to gain attention. Another possibility is that he doesn't want to send signals to everyone but rather to specific individuals. For example, Lao Tan might genuinely want to attract a particular lady's attention. He invites her to the ceremony, and when they enter the exhibition hall together, she expresses curiosity about the anonymous donor. Lao Tan can then smile subtly and say, "Actually, it's me." Instances of wanting to send signals to specific people are not uncommon in reality, although not always as apparent. For instance, some ultra-wealthy individuals might not wear luxury brand clothes but instead opt for custom designs from specific designers. These outfits may look simple, but those in the know can recognize them as top-notch designs that money can't easily buy. Those who understand are likely to be financially well-off individuals. There's also the case of certain artists intentionally embedding clues in their work, waiting for astute individuals to discover them. For instance, a top musician named Sokolov showcases his exceptional skills not by flaunting flashy fingerwork but by subtly incorporating intricate embellishments into seemingly simple classical pieces. Only true loyal fans and skilled musicians can discern these details. If we approach all these motivations behind hiding advantageous signals from a game theory perspective and summarize it in one sentence, it would be the book's statement: hiding, in itself, is a high-cost signal. What signal does it represent? It signifies that you can afford the consequences of some people not seeing your advantageous signals. In other words, being low-key, humble, or anonymous, these forms of not flaunting, ironically, are the most expensive forms of showing off. This indicates that your advantages no longer require recognition from those unrelated to you. Alright, what we just discussed was one aspect of game theory's ultimate explanation, the high-cost signaling model. Now, let's explore another one called subgame perfect equilibrium. This concept appears in dynamic games where both sides engage in multiple rounds of interaction. It refers to the strategies employed by both sides, not only forming a Nash equilibrium on a global scale but also constituting a Nash equilibrium in each round of interaction, subgame. It may sound complex at first, but let's take a moment to hear a story. This is a true historical event from 1878 in the United States involving two prominent families, the Hatfields and the McCoys. For simplicity, let's refer to them as the Old Haws and the Old Mays. One day, they ended up in court over a pig. The sow had piglets on Old Haws territory, and they claimed all the pigs were theirs. However, Old May argued that since the mother pig had their family's mark on her ear, all the pigs should belong to them. The dispute continued in court. After a lengthy trial, the pig was awarded to the Old Haws. Did the matter end there? No. Over the next 10 years, this disagreement escalated into a comprehensive war described only by terms like massacre and struggle. During these years, both sides retaliated intensively, fighting, kidnapping, breaking into each other's homes, offering rewards for capture, arson, gunfights, and the situation continued to deteriorate. The two families gradually marched together toward destruction. From the perspective of the aftermath, the behaviors of both families were highly irrational. Some might even invoke the famous economic theory, the sunk cost fallacy. This theory suggests that sunk costs, which cannot be recovered, should not be considered when making future decisions. Therefore, a rational choice would be to let go of the past and look forward. In fact, not only economists but also psychologists, health experts, and motivational figures might tell you that family traumas, friend betrayals, and partner infidelities can indeed leave wounds, making you desire revenge. However, if you refuse to forgive, your pain will persist. Only through forgiveness and letting go can you achieve genuine peace and happiness. Forgiveness guides you toward a path of mental and physical well-being. Additionally, traditional Chinese wisdom also advocates for repaying grievances with virtue and harmony as the most valuable. These ideas sound appealing. However, the strange thing is, why hasn't forgiveness become a natural response for us during the long process of human evolution? Why is it so difficult to let go of the past and blame others? Is it because we are still not rational enough? On the surface, it seems like that, we let emotions replace rational thinking. However, game theory scholars have found that this is just approximate explanation. The ultimate explanation is that this tit-for-tat strategy is, in fact, a subgame perfect equilibrium in dynamic games. This seemingly irrational behavior is a rational choice within the framework of hidden games. What kind of game is this? You might have heard of the prisoner's dilemma, which discusses two prisoners. Although, from a global perspective, it is best for both not to confess, if the punishment for being unilaterally identified by the other is severe, both prisoners, considering their individual interests, will choose to betray each other and confess. However, you may have also heard that the solution to the prisoner's dilemma is to increase the number of game rounds, turning a single game into a repeated game. For instance, if these two prisoners belong to the same organization and are bound to meet again after serving their sentences, the probability of mutual betrayal decreases. Actually, the story doesn't end here. If we imagine such a multi-round dynamic game, where both sides can freely choose to cooperate or betray in each round, choosing to cooperate in every round is not the optimal strategy for an individual. So, what is the optimal strategy? Scholars, through mathematical calculations and computer simulations, have derived a strategy known as tit-for-tat. In each round, if you are one of the parties, you start by choosing to cooperate in the first round. In subsequent rounds, you simply replicate the other party's last move, cooperate if they cooperate, betray if they betray, and correct your move if they correct theirs. This strategy, aptly named tit-for-tat, has proven to be effective. To apply this strategy in real life, remember three things. First, show a cooperative and friendly attitude initially, refrain from causing harm proactively. Second, don't swallow your pride. If the other party betrays you, betray them back. Third, if the other party corrects their behavior, continue cooperating rather than holding on to grudges and repeatedly betraying. However, you may notice that the premise for applying this strategy is that both parties must make their choices simultaneously. In each round. What if the two parties take turns making moves? What is the optimal strategy in this case? This introduces another form of game, known as the repeated punishment game. In this game, each round begins with the first person taking action, choosing to cooperate or betray. The second person then acts, but instead of choosing to cooperate or betray, they decide whether to punish the first person. Now, let's consider what the subgame perfect equilibrium is in this repeated punishment game. Our initial reaction might be that it's ideal for the first person to cooperate every time, and the second person to refrain from punishment. This way, everyone is happy, right? Is this a subgame perfect equilibrium? No, it's not. As we mentioned earlier, a subgame perfect equilibrium requires not only forming a Nash equilibrium on a global scale but also constituting a Nash equilibrium in each round of interaction, subgame. However, if the second person refrains from punishment every time, the first person, seeing the benefit of betrayal, would choose to betray, contradicting the definition of a Nash equilibrium. In Nash equilibrium, everyone is unwilling to change their strategy, as changing would result in a loss. Let's consider the alternative scenario: the first person cooperates every time, and the second person only punishes when the first person betrays. Does this make sense? Indeed, if the cost of punishment outweighs the gains from betrayal, this strategy can form a Nash equilibrium on a global scale. However, this is not sufficient. Subgame perfect equilibrium requires that in every round, subgame, a Nash equilibrium is maintained. Can our strategy achieve this? No, it cannot. The following analysis might be a bit complex, but if you're up for the challenge, let's work through it together. Alternatively, you can skip to the final conclusion. The key here is to ensure that whenever the first person betrays, the second person will always choose to punish. How can we achieve this? We need to add a condition to our previous strategy: the first person will choose to cooperate only if they see that all previous betrayals have been punished. Otherwise, they will betray. With this modification, if the second person refrains from punishing betrayal, they will suffer losses in subsequent rounds. Thus, they will be motivated to punish betrayal, constituting a subgame perfect equilibrium. This entire deductive process leads to a clear insight: in repeated games, making the past significant is the only way to sustain cooperation. It goes against the sunk cost fallacy theory, suggesting that we should let the past go. In situations involving multiple rounds of interaction between two parties, forgive and forget is not a good choice. In summary, game theory tells us that conditional cooperation is better than unconditional cooperation, and tit for tat is better than forgive and forget. Unconditional cooperation might seem like a higher moral ground at first glance. However, it encourages rule breakers to take advantage of those who follow the rules, allowing the unscrupulous to exploit the kind-hearted. On the other hand, punishing betrayal, at least, provides a deterrent that favors long-term cooperation and mutual benefit. So, the seemingly less rational tit for tat is actually a rational choice in the realm of hidden games. Does this mean that the tragic events between the old Haas and the old Mays mentioned at the beginning were inevitable? Not necessarily. Their problem was that, after a betrayal was already punished and a round ended, in the new round, they did not adopt the subgame perfect equilibrium strategy we discussed. Instead, they engaged in a vicious cycle strategy of always betray, continuously punish. And this is the least desirable strategy among all. Alright, that concludes the key content I wanted to share with you from this book. Besides the topics we discussed earlier, the book also delves into other issues, such as why many people tend to speak indirectly, why people around the world spontaneously adhere to the first come, first served rule, how to identify when someone is persuading you with one-sided evidence, and whether only love can withstand the test of time is true. If you're interested, feel free to click on the ebook at the end of the transcript to continue this occasionally brain-burning but always interesting adventure, using game theory thinking to explore the ultimate explanations in this world. Well, that wraps up our discussion of this book today. Congratulations, you've completed another book. Thank you all for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like the video, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practice, achieve our financial goals, and create a better future together. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.